This is Amy Chan from Cake Decorating School, and if you like cake decorating, you're in the right place. In this video, we're going to be making a festive and sparkly design for New Year's. Help bring in 2023 with a little bit of sweetness. The video is broken down into steps, so you can rewind, skip ahead, and rewatch as desired. So let's make the buttercream color for our cake. We're going to make a small 4-inch round, and I just want to have enough to coat the outside with just a thin layer of the color we're going to make, which is gray, and have a little extra to affix some decorations. So I've got some American style buttercream in my bowl, and I'm just going to give it a drop of black and mix it around. Black can go a long way, and I want to make a nice kind of medium tone dove gray, but I don't want it to be too dark. I think this might just be perfect. So it's always better to start with less and then add more if you need it, versus having to add more white buttercream to kind of lighten a color. That can be a big waste of buttercream if you're not careful. And I think this is beautiful. It's definitely got enough color in it that it really reads as gray, but it's not so dark that it's verging on black or that it's necessarily going to draw too much attention away from our decorations. We just want it to be there and present without being too bold. And I think we're right where we want to be. So we've got our cake ready to go. We're using a 4-inch round. It's 2 layers. I filled it with buttercream between the layers after I leveled them off, and I've got it covered with a nice layer of white buttercream. We're gonna use that gray on the outside, and it's a darker color, so I like to just do it as a layer on the outside so that it gives something for people to eat around, just like fondant, so that if they don't want to eat all that food coloring, they don't have to. And I'm gonna start with a nice big dollop right on top and just smooth it out just the way I normally would if I'm applying buttercream to a cake. Just nice even strokes back and forth all directions. When you've got it spread out evenly, use your palette knife, give it a spin around. That'll give you a nice flat smooth surface on top. And then we're going to load up our spatula and take care of those sides. Just load your spatula up so you have buttercream all along the length and work it around evenly in a nice thin layer and reload as you need to. You can see nice buildup of frosting all along. That's going to make it easy to apply and work all the way up and down the length of this cake. Doesn't really take much to get us all covered. Once we're covered, I'm going to go around with my bowl scraper and my bench scraper just to even out the application and straighten up those sides. And then we'll remove any buildup we have at the top. Now, depending on how even the white was underneath, it may only take one application, but if you're a little uneven, you can see I have a few little spots where I've got some show through. It might take a second quick layer to get a smooth, even application of that color on your cake. So we're gonna make some chocolate pieces. These are just basically gonna be large swipes of chocolate. So just kind of abstract little pieces. And I'm just gonna take a little silver luster dust and just kind of gently brush it over my tray. And you can see I'm working on a silpat and just kind of distributing this. So I have a nice surface area that's kind of lightly covered with that silver. It doesn't have to be too dark. It can kind of be diffuse at the top and get more concentrated at the bottom. And then I'm going to take a little bit of my Dove Gray Petal Dust and layer this just right here on the bottom. And I just want to kind of tap it into place down here at the bottom, I don't want to get it necessarily up at the top. I'm trying to give myself kind of a gradient where we're darker at the bottom and more intense at the top. And this should give us a nice, beautiful kind of swirly effect on our chocolate pieces. And so this doesn't have to be specific or particular. You don't have to be exact or precise. We just want to kind of cover an area so that we have this down, that we'll lay the chocolate on top, and it's going to lay that color onto what's going to be the front of the chocolate when we peel them off, but for now looks like the back. And you can use tempered white chocolate, or if it's easier and you're more used to it, you can just use some melted white chocolate candy melts. And I just have mine in a little silicone cup, and they're warmed up. And I'm just gonna pour a nice little blob down here. And I've got my little spatula ready to go, and I'm just gonna gently press into it and swipe up. And I'm trying to make these nice kind of dramatic little swipes. They're about 2 to 2¼ inches wide, and it'll take probably about 7 of these to go around the outside of my cake. I've already got my cake iced. I know what the diameter is, so make sure you measure the diameter of your cake so you have enough of these to go all the way around and potentially overlap a little bit. You can always leave gaps between them, and we can put them on at angles to create some style, but you want enough pieces that if you have one break, you've got some extra. And I'm also going to make just a few small pieces. That way, if I want to add some on top for some extra drama next to my numbers, I have some things to kind of play with. And you can change the angle of that spatula just to give yourself little different effects with the different pieces. So these should set up relatively quickly. They're very thin, so it'll only take a couple of minutes. If you need to speed them up, you can always put them in the refrigerator. But I just want some stuff to play with. And then we're going to finish them off with kind of a black speckled effect, just to give them a little bit of extra depth. And we'll show you that later when we show you how to peel them off as well. Let me just do 1 or 2 more up here at top. So with decorations like this, because they can tend to be fragile, I always want to make sure I make myself some extras. And those will be fun to play with on top and mix into our numbers to create a great backdrop. So we're going to set this aside and make our gum paste numbers. So let's make our gum paste numbers. I've got a little extra yellow or gold colored gum paste that I have left over from another project. And I just want to make sure that it's nice and warm so that it's pliable and it's easy to extrude from our clay gun. And then I'm just going to take my hands and roll it up into a nice little coil. It needs to be thin enough that it'll actually go into the barrel of that gun. Yep, there we go. And then I'm just going to give the outside a light little dusting with a bit of powdered sugar. This is going to help keep it from adhering to the inside of the gun. I've just found over the years that it's really helpful to do that, especially if it feels particularly tacky on the outside. So I'm going to take off any excess that doesn't squish down in there. And then I've just picked a nice fat round die to use. And this is going to allow me to extrude perfectly round coils without having to spend a lot of time rolling them. If you don't have one of these, you can always roll coils out by hand, and they're an easy way to make numbers. But this device is a great way to make shapes and to do so quickly without having to really spend a lot of time doing it with your hands. So we're just going to give it a twist. One of the important things when using these is not to twist too hard. Don't force it. The gum paste is relatively thick and pretty stiff, so a lot of times I just give it a few twists, nice and gentle, and then just let it come on its own. You'll notice it's just slowly pressing it out. So build up a little pressure, let it do its thing. And we're only doing a little cake, so we're not making huge numbers. So it's probably enough to do the first one, right? We need 2 2s, a 0, and a 3. So not hard to do. And I'm just going to shape them by hand. So just a nice little curve there, a pinch to create my 2. and then I'll cut off the end. And you can see I've got a nice little tray waiting for my numbers. I'm going to transfer them over. If you need to, reshape a little bit, or you can even shape them directly on the surface that they're going to dry on. And I'm going to set them aside, let them dry for at least 12 to 24 hours so they're nice and firm. And we're going to give them a quick wash in a little gum glue and cover them in a nice edible gold glitter so they'll really sparkle for New Year's. So I have my dry numbers here, and originally I tended to paint them with just gum glue and just kind of really super coat them in my edible gold glitter. It's a little gold twinkle dust, but I'm actually running a little bit lower on it than I realized, so I'm going to use a little paint I've made with highlighter gold, and this will give me a gold background so I can use less of that twinkle dust. So it's just highlighter gold mixed with a little clear extract or alcohol. And then I can take my numbers and just quickly give them a nice paint to make them gold, and then give them a little sprinkle with that edible glitter to really make them sparkle and twinkle. And the highlighter gold on the back will help fill in the gaps between your glitter and make it look nice and gold. My numbers are kind of tiny, so it might take me a couple of passes just to kind of get all the way around, but you can let them dry and go over like the top surface and then go over the edges so that they look like they're kind of completely covered in gold. But I love the little extra sprinkle and sparkle that the gold glitter gives to them. It just gives it that extra little bit of reflective shine that really makes me feel like New Year's Eve with confetti, glitter, champagne, and all that jazz. So just keep going until you get all your numbers done. And I just like to go in paint one and do a little sprinkle. And once they've set up a little bit, I can go back and do things like the sides on the numbers if I want them to look like they're gold all the way around. Just a little easier to handle if you just do one part of them at a time, because it gives you something that you can kind of grab onto. It should only take a few minutes for that alcohol to evaporate and set up. And if I have any excess glitter and dust, I can always then dump it back into my container if I want to save that. So we're going to let these dry a little bit, and then we'll go through and we'll paint the sides or any areas where we still have yellow showing, just to make sure we have kind of complete coverage before we put them on our cake. So we have the decorations that we made earlier ready to go. You can see it only took a couple of short minutes for them to set up, and then they're easy enough to peel off of this silpat. And so if you're worried, you can always use a spatula to help you, but honestly, I don't even mind if they break, because that nice little torn edge at the top is some great detailing. And you can see you get that nice swirly, whorly effect of the gray and the silver mixed together. So I can go ahead and peel the rest of these off, do my little swipes as well. And I'm gonna give these a nice little kind of speckled, splattered effect at the bottom, just to add some extra interest to them. So just slide your finger under. I'm just going to leave the ones at the top because they're going to be hard to get off right now, but I'll peel them off later and do these as well. And I just have a little bit of coal black petal dust that I've put onto the lid of a container, and I've mixed it around with just a little bit of vodka. You can use any kind of clear extract, anything that'll evaporate for you, but we're looking to make a nice loose but dark paint. And then I just want to give it a nice splatter. And kind of the more wild you are with your brush, the more of a splatter effect you'll get. And I just want to add a little bit of detail on there that's like a dark splatter. It's just going to give us a little black, a little contrast. And I'm going to try and go kind of low down on these and not get too much up into the top. And I'm going to do all of my pieces like this. So I have a whole bunch more that I've prepped off camera so that we have enough to go all the way around our cake and then have some fun little extras to go on top. So our cake has had a chance to firm up. Our gray buttercream is nice and solid, and I gave it one more coat just to cover up some thin spots I had because some of this gray will probably show through between our decorations, especially at the top. And I've got my decorations over here off to the side. They're all set up. The black speckling on top has dried out, and I've got my little numbers here on a tray as well. And we want to go ahead and apply these. Now, we're going to put some buttercream on the back to get them to stick, and you can go straight up and down with them. But I'm actually going to go to a slight angle. So I'm just going to go really carefully. I've got my gray buttercream, the excess, in a bag, no coupler, just a number 21 tip, so it's a nice star tip. And I'm going to use that to do some finishing details on the top, but I can also use it to easily just apply a nice little ribbon there. And I can give these a firm little press. And I want to make sure that what I consider kind of this leading edge is closer to the surface, so the next one can kind of overlap it a little bit. And that gives me a little bit of a gap back here, which is going to allow me to kind of sneak my last one in underneath in the same kind of orientation. So I'm just going to continue to go around with these. Give myself a nice big fat line there, and I can just gently kind of place them on the cake. And you'll see we're getting some show through here, but also as we turn, you're going to see some back here as well. And this is going to give it a nice kind of dynamic look. You can see it kind of juts out and gives it a little bit of style. We'll just keep going around until we get them all in place. And I'm not worried about them overlapping perfectly. They can have a little bit of a gap in between them. You want to make sure that you have really enough to make it all the way around your cake. So you can always take them off and reposition them. They don't have to be perfectly overlapped or spaced out. So I just want to make sure. I'm going to go 1, 2, and 3. So we should be good. Just need to leave just a little bit of a gap between them. And if you work relatively quickly, that buttercream will still be kind of soft and they'll end up being movable. But this gives us a nice kind of flow all the way around our cake. Just maybe space them out just a little more so the spacing between them is a little more even. And that should be beautiful. So because we're doing something that's very abstract, it's very loose, it's not very exact, it doesn't have to be perfect, things don't have to line up super evenly. We just want to give it a nice, beautiful feel that has that kind of wonderful side angle to it, has a little bit of drama, it looks really nice and dynamic. I just want to pick a spot to be the front of my cake. And then I'm going to go in and just and tweak my decorations, and I'm going to put some on top as well. So for this, I'm just going to do some stars and rosettes. So do whatever is easiest for you, and I'm going to do it kind of at the back. And I'm going to put some extra little swipes. I did some little ones there, so just a rosette and a star, and that should be enough to kind of hold these up because they're little. Maybe one more. Just create a nice little fan there at the back. And that gives me a great little spot to put in my numbers. Since they're nice and small and light, I can just put them right there, right in front. And then on top of some of those details. So I actually made my 0 and my second 2 just a little bit smaller. So I want them kind of elevated on top of some of those rosettes. And I made my initial 2 and my 3 just a little bit bigger. So I'm just going to sandwich that in right there. And you can see that gives us a lovely, dynamic, yet easy to accomplish design for New Year's. We hope you enjoyed this fun, easy, and quick design for a festive New Year's Eve cake. And if you did, you'll check out some of our other videos. We've got some great ones in our flower series that cover individual flowers, and even some wonderful three-dimensional floral cakes. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like more about the cake decorating materials and equipment we use, or just some inspirational videos about cake decorating itself, you can follow us on Insta or YouTube at Cake Decorating School. If you'd like to know more about yearly membership and what it entails, you can go to www.cakedecoratingschool.com for more information. And if you're interested in these products, you can check the links in the description.